Great morning, Marque. How's everybody doing? Those of you joining us via Zoom. Zoom? Yes, we're on Zoom. Would like to formally call today's police CBA meeting to order. Do a very brief recap of where we stand. I'd like the record to reflect that we've got representatives from both police CBA and the city present. We will open the meeting. No need for introductions. I think we're all comfortable here. We're going to pass around the sign-in sheets, make sure everybody gets a chance to sign it, and we'll provide a very brief recap as where we stand with the budget. I'll go ahead and do that. The budget passed Tuesday night after second reading. Your request, there were no questions after the extensive explanations that took place through the 5 budget workshops, and we're ready to proceed effective October 1. This being the last matter that we need to do to move forward. The main parts of this contract that may have any difference was 1, obviously the pay. 2, we talked about hiring practices that we've got some language to review on that end. And the third part was a creation of some form of public safety, mental health, wellness committee, whatever we end up deciding that final thing will be. And then we're ready to finalize this agreement should everybody still be in agreement.
Where we at on the raises and so forth? Can you give a little overview of that at all?
Absolutely. The ask that was made by the CBA, as far as the scaled, has been accepted. It was Susie finalized that into the budget as to what we would do. Obviously, we could not do the subsequent year's budgets yet because we don't know where we stand then, but we're agreeing in principle to follow that suit as we discussed as far as the scaling model, right? That you guys presented as your final ask. So that's where we stand. Any questions on that? Nope. What's happened, I guess, since then? Gus has taken the lead to present I guess what that relates to, what that looks like on paper. I know he has shared it with Susie and I for review, and I believe it's also been shared with you for review. Are there any errors or any mistakes that we need to look at that anybody needs to review before we sign the final?
What have you shared with us?
The pay sheet that you have in your hand just now?
I did that.
Yeah, that's ours. We generated that. We haven't received anything in reference to the pay scale.
Gus, did you share that?
No, I did not.
I apologize.
But I will send it now.
Okay.
And I'm actually checking that with y'all's numbers. What?
Earlier today, I furnished Jeff a copy of a draft agreement that he and I have been exchanging on. And in that draft agreement, I included our calculations based on your input. And so if we're correct, and I'm assuming that's something Susie's got to say yes on, but it was calculated with the spreadsheet. I could share that with anybody.
Well, first step we need to do is make sure there's no discrepancies on that sheet. Make sure that we're all on the same page and agreement that those numbers all match.
But we're on a 3-year agreement, with year 1 being 4%, year 2 being 5%, and year 3 being 6%.
Correct. That's the scale that you guys made as your final ask, and that's what was presented through the budget. Now, again,
Based on all the preliminary, I took the liberty to do calculations and put it into sheets for your approval, and it's also included in the form that I sent back to Gus, so that if those numbers are mathematically correct, and I believe they are, we've checked them 3 times, then that could be part of the tentative. So,
excuse me. What's in the budget? It's only for 1 year, the initial year, the 4%, because we don't have 3 years budget. Each year we go through a budget process. So your second and third year can only be incorporated into the contract. but it cannot be in the 2014, 2024, 2023 budget year. Because we only capture 1 year, each budget process. Make sense? So the second year, the 5%, and the third year, the 6%, if it is part of the contract being signed, and after it's being executed, then we'll incorporate that into 2024 budget and then 2025 budget, so forth. But what is in the 2013 budget is only your year one 4%. Does not include your year two and year three 5% and 6%. I just wanted to make it clear.
Yeah, and I think the intention was a 2023 budget. I think what Susie meant there. So yes, I agree. I think we stated that. You guys know we can't do future budgets yet. But at least in principle, this will be our guide to follow that subsequently for years to come.
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you on the salaries. It looks like what we are doing is 3 decimal places, and really it's anyone feel free to chime in here. What we are doing and what we have done is, what we are doing here is 3 decimal places for the hourly rate and then 2 decimal places for the monthly and annual. I realize that it's really the hourly rate that everyone's concerned about, because, you know, that's how you're paid. But I just want to make sure, because what I just sent y'all is 3 decimal places everywhere. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with doing 3 for the hourly and 2 for the monthly and annual. I understand we're talking about thousands of pennies.
Yes, sir.
I also want to I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
You have a visual picture that's contained in the probable TNA agreement that, I guess is a pictorial of what you just said, so.
Yes, let me share my screen with you.
And that's because that's the way it's always been done here, and I'm aware of that, so I calculated it like that.
Yeah,
And you're not the only, place that does it that way. There's people that do 4 and there's, people that do 2, but for the most part, every city has its own approach, and that's what we.
yeah, no, I think your approach is right, John. I'm just,
Right.
what I just sent you, you'll see something a little different. So before I go start changing things, I want you to know.
Right.
All right, so I should be sharing my screen, or is this the wrong one? Do you see it?
Yes, sir. Did you email that to me?
Yes, I did here. I emailed it to you and President King. Okay. So can you see the spreadsheet and can y'all see the spreadsheet now or my screen?
Yes.
Okay, and the spreadsheet and the Word document, y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to update the spreadsheet for monthly and annual to be 2 decimal places, and that's what I was talking about.
Are you on tab for year 1?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if Susie's had a chance to review all these, but I'll tell you, I'm not going to agree to it until she's blessed it. So
Right.
just for the sake of that. Okay.
And Susie, as we were going through this, I discovered a mistake in mine, Susie, so I will resend it to you. I corrected that.
Thank you, Gus. No, I have not had a chance to review all of them.
Okay, so yeah, that's your year one.
Which matches exactly to the document that Mr. Curry just gave. At least the hourly does. I'm going by the assumption that the rest of the math matches. Do that real quick. Switch on me.
Would it be possible for Gus to send that over to Kyle so that he could print us a hard copy so the rest of us can kind of see it a little bit better?
Absolutely.
We ain't gotta be standing at the monitor.
Oh, no, I understand. I'll do that right now.
So, Gus, my question would be, did you use a standard spreadsheet to calculate the numbers you have?
Yes, I did. I'll click on, so sheet one is gonna be the current year that we're in right now. Then year one is gonna be based on the current year plus the 4%. And so you'll see this is wrong. I need to.
These numbers all match. So
Well,
both of your sheets are exactly.
Based on what you have in your hand and what you see up there, they're not the same, correct?
No, they're exactly the same.
Okay.
These are.
He's saying on that.
This side. I don't know.
Okay.
This page. Compared to what you gave me is to the decimal exactly the same.
Okay.
Every single line.
Well, I built a spreadsheet. I'm assuming just like he
Yeah, I'm
did.
sure you guys did it in Excel or what have you. So it looks like it's an exact match.
It's just hard to see from here.
Yeah,
Not that. I think we need copies of what.
here, Kyle, hold on, Kyle. Let me send you the updated one.
Kyle took off already. Kyle's not here.
Send it to me, okay, I'll go make copies.
Okay, so to answer your question, John, yes, I built the spreadsheet with the numbers from last year or the current year we're in. And then for year one, as you can see, I took last year's number plus 4% is what this number comes out to. And then for year two, since we're doing 5% based on year one, I took year one's number plus 5%. That's how I built it. And I'm sure that's how you did as well. And just skimming it on my screen, it looks like
What? What's that?
Sir, we're hiring.
I hear. Someone. I hear.
I got it.
Seven. Over two plus yourself, seven. Assuming the numbers are all correct. Gus, as Ms. Patty and Kyle are working on getting those items for better visibility, is there anything else that you need from Mr. Kerr or from anybody here for the other two sections of what we're talking about being the Mental Health Public Safety Committee and or any discussion on the hiring?
yeah, we can talk about those when they're ready. You know,
So when does Susie think that she'll have an opportunity to be able to review those figures and give you a determination on
Should be today after, I have another meeting this afternoon at 2:30. After that meeting, I should be able to review.
Well, I could send her my spreadsheet calculation. And Gus can send him or his, and they're basically exactly the same, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll,
For her to be the financial guru, because this is her.
Yeah. looking at year one, you know, it looks like there's a difference in mine and John's and a penny in a couple of the monthly rates. So,
Do we want to move on to the hiring while we let Susan have the opportunity to review all that?
He's gonna make sure that his numbers and our numbers are the same as what we have printed on the document, and if there's no discrepancy between what he has and what we have, I think that's. We can address it if she comes up with one, but otherwise, I think we're good to move on.
All right. So everybody's in mutual agreement that we're going to discuss the hiring. Is that correct?
Yes.
So. I'll pass around copies, but I don't know who actually has one, because it's not, so. Does everybody on this side table have one?
They both.
Yeah, you have one.
See, I think that's what's on.
You have one, sir?
The hiring?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Patty, I think you got one of these hiring ones, right?
Yeah.
Copies, yes.
One down.
I'm gonna throw a couple like this out over here for the pair or whoever it's not doing.
What the difference, you know, because I haven't had a chance to read all of it. What the
Yeah, I
difference-
already got one.
You do, okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else need one?
I get it.
Oh.
So do you want to read it, or do you want me to go ahead and kind of give you the high points and then you can read it as you go along, or?
Absolutely.
In essence, we tried to put our minds to studying your hiring process, and we had discussions with the chief and with the HR director, just kind of get an idea of how the process works. And I did research on your internet site, your minimum standards, your local civil service rules. And then I compared that hiring process, which is regulated by Chapter 143 of the local government code, against many of the cities like Marque that are Chapter 143 cities. And then I looked at the bargaining locals that I've worked with and represented and determine how we fix some of the problems. And the problem exists in the chief's eyes is that he can't, he needs to have a ready supply of potential applicants that can be background expediently and kind of keep that hiring chain going. And so what I did was I didn't recreate the wheel, but I did take lots of language from several different civil service city contracts and try to meld it together so it'd be the best fit possible for Lamarck, Texas. And so the crust of this is that statutorily under the Firefighter and Police Officers Employment Act, we have the opportunity to create our own way of doing business, if you will, within the contract and make it legal within the state of Texas. And so there are certain types of preemptions that would be appropriate that could help this city have a quicker turnaround on testing and processing applicants. And so all this language is pretty much geared up to try to arrive at that conclusion. And so when we look at the pool of applicants that potentially could be here, they're relatively known, but currently with your local civil service rules, you're requiring certified peace officers who would be applicant for your lateral entry process to take the basic entry level test that's specified in the state civil service. So we patterned a situation by which that we can preempt certain aspects of it, and in an attempt to try to keep a ready stream of potential applicants so that the police department can background them. And so you can hire from different pools, the way this language is done. The first pool that you'd have the opportunity to, and the context of how you do this is written in here, but it's also subject to the chief's putting together his hiring, your HR director working within the context of the latitude that are given here. But in essence, if you take people that are not currently certified peace officers, it would be appropriate to give them your basic civil service entry level examination and place them on an eligibility list in the order of which they completed the test. When we're talking about lateral entry candidates, both from civil service cities and non-civil service cities, they may have already gone through a similar process, and they've already kind of been vetted because they're already certified peace officers. And based on your lateral entry program and guidelines that you currently have, you already kind of take advantage of it. But some of those are required to take a test and then be on a list with people that have no experience. So what we've done is carved out a scenario by which you can have lateral entry program applicants on a day-to-day basis through the chief's hiring process that he regulates, and then he does the selection process without them taking the initial examination and being on the same list that non-certified people would be. And so our goal was to try to create an opportunity where Marque could pull from all the different potential applicants and deal with them in such a fashion that you could expediently refer them and their applications either by civil service testing and or not requiring them to take the test because they're already a certified peace officer with X number of years of experience, and they've already been vetted by other venues. And so the entry level test, is not necessarily the thing that you would use to screen those folks. You're going to look at their work record, their history, and that you're going to do in their background. And potentially that could represent some additional candidates that you don't already have right now. And so we looked at from a standpoint of how we modify and create contract language that gives the city the maximum opportunity to employ different approaches with different pools of applicants, if you will, and do so, and which is ultimately going to benefit the police officer on the job here who are working understaffed. It will give the chief the ability to hire more people quicker and backfill those positions so there's not a staffing issue, which is advantageous for the officer's safety. It's also advantageous for the citizens and their safety. And so we didn't see a downside to this. And that's why we took it upon ourselves with the input we got from the chief and HR director to put this stuff together. And so as it lays here today, you really have the best of all options, if you will. It gives the city an enhanced ability to recruit and track people and still, what I would consider attract people from 3 different pools, where they're certified officers that you try to seek applications for a lateral entry program, whether they're officers that have formerly been here that, see that the pay is getting better and they want to come back here. And then people that are in training at statewide academies around that your chief will try to recruit from. And then also people that you could have tested walking off the street, they just want to be policed. And if the chief wants to, send those people to academies, he could also do it in that fashion. So it's really up to your HR director and your chief of police to fashion and pattern something within the context of the latitude we're creating here to give you the best of all worlds. And within the context of this, you already have some local rules that we've tracked within here. And then we're giving you the opportunity with advice and counsel from your association to change things in the future through your local civil service commission, which you're already empowered to do. You know, subject to the review and approval of your city council, which is the way it is in every civil service city. So we've had dialogue with the chief. We found out what his druthers are, and we'd like to empower him and HR director to be able to have multiple eligibility lists at the same time, which is not currently authorized by statute. So as an example that we use when we're discussing, you have an academy slots that you may have the capability to fill, or people that are already in academy you might want to track. So you give a test, but you only get 6 or 8 people that show up to take the test. Well, you have to go through the whole posting process again, but right now you refer the people for background. Once you determine if anybody's hireable or not, that takes a span of time. And so we created a carve out, if you will, that would allow the city to have more than one eligibility list at one time, but you'd have to hire in the correct order. And so if you discounted somebody, but you would have a ready pool constantly working at all times for entry level positions if you chose to work it that way. You have the latitude here to make the list specifically from a 3-month list to a 12-month list or anything in between. We've written in the capability so that lateral entry candidates wouldn't have to be tested. They would be on a separate style eligibility list that would be created by the process that your chief wants to use of doing the background, the screening, and determining the capability for these people. So we feel like having an opportunity to do that in 3 different directions simultaneously gives you a greater opportunity to compete with all of the area departments for talent, and would help all our officers, you know, have more, you know, help out there and to help the citizens. So that's what we lay out to you. And after you have an opportunity to read through some of it, you're going to have some very specific questions. And I'm going to defer to the lawyer in the room, which is your legal counsel, to give you advice on whether or not he believes this is legal or not legal, and as we do. But we try to incorporate all the desires that the chief, you know, portrayed to us that he felt like would give him the ability and empower him to constantly, you know, keep a ready stream of applicants coming through the door from the really 3 different tools of people. And so one of the aspects that you'll read in here that's somewhat different than your local rules, but this will preempt those rules until they change them, is that the chief wanted to lower, currently your lateral entry program requires an officer have 5 years of experience and certified as a TCO officer. Your chief felt like it would be more advantageous to lower that number to 3 years and maybe get a greater pool of people. It felt like 3 years of service as a peace officer was a pretty solid number. And so we've also incorporated that into this process. And so it is different than what you do right now, because right now you set a threshold at 5 years. And so by this contract language, we would incorporate that to 3 years. And so, but to be honest with you, and you know, the second section of this article, you'll see where, you know, you have the process to go through the Civil Service Commission to amend certain aspects of his hiring, as long as there's concurrence. And that's pretty much the way it's done now. We're just giving you some preemption, if you will, of some of the state statutes and helping this organization ride its own way of doing business when it comes to hiring. It will be both legal and legitimate, but it'll also be more expeditious and more cost effective, and hopefully will, you know, produce a better outcome when it comes to the number of people that you'll be able to attract and hire. So with that, I mean, I'd open it up for your questions, but I'd also point out to you that based on the rules of negotiations that we've already done, this was something we were asked to work on, but by the same token, there has to be consensus for this to be considered, because no new items can hit this table without joint consensus and agreement from both parties. And we would tell you that we put the work into this and we would be in agreement, but it's ultimately the city manager's decision to decide if you want to add this to the topics that we're talking about for this particular contract or not.
It's my understanding that Chief Aragon does agree. As he's the one that brought this up, if I'm not mistaken. I know HR is also for the most part agreeing. Is there anything you guys would like to say?
Let me ask.
Who wants to go first? Okay.
My question is, okay, the eligibility list, okay, we've got one going down, we have the three that I think that we just still in the background. I went ahead and posted the next exam, so we had an opportunity to as soon as possible get these, if I talk to people about it. And, my question is, okay, once we take this exam, and if they're not through with the background checks on the first eligibility one now, you're asking, can they start the new list, the background, and then before they finish the first one?
Yes, they can. Yes.
Okay, that's, are we okay with that legally? As far as, these people should, the first one that we're working on now, they should have first opportunity, because their action.
Their opportunity doesn't change. The requirement is that you still have to follow the eligibility list. That list is still an active list until those applicants have been either disqualified or hired. That doesn't prevent you from taking the step in reference to the other exam list and beginning your process there. That's correct. There's no reason for it to stop. It should get, you know, that the background is not what determines whether you get hired or not. It determines your eligibility. But you know, if you start the backgrounds on the second eligibility list, the first eligibility list still has to be either completed or terminated.
Well,
Yeah.
from a scheduling
You have to exhaust the
standpoint, it
list
would give
first.
you enhanced capability to post and have another test when you already have one standing eligibility list. But by the language of the contract, and in essence, as it is now with state law, you still have to discount number one before you can go to number two and so forth. We've written it so you can have two eligibility lists working at the same time, but working in the context that you've tested, they're on an eligibility list, but the first one is number one and has the priority. Number two comes later. But if you only have 7 people that showed up and took the test, and they've all been referred for background, and you know you have 10 openings, you're not going to be able to fill off that list. So that's a classic example of how you could then post another test, have another testing, and be ready to fill the entire amount of positions. And one of the things that I thought about with this is that you've applied for grants and your authorized strength of police department could increase. And if you know, it would give you the ready ability to be able to process more people and have them ready to go to work, but you still have to go through the pecking order, if you will, of number one on the first eligibility list and number two and number three. Now, as you well know, you discount some of these for background and then they're removed from the list and then you go down. So you have to do that process just like you do now. It's just that you can have 2 lists working and you can keep all your background investigators working and sending out material, and which will make this process faster for the city. And the turnaround to recruit, to hire, your background and train, all these things, they take lots of time, as you well know. We're just trying to give you opportunities to increase that timeline to make it faster and more productive.
Yeah, Pat, that's one of that has merit, because we could be working on the first list. And if I have the manpower, we have the manpower, we could start, if you tested the second one and there's a lineup, we could start doing those. Of course, we can't hire them till we finish the first numbers. So we're actually giving us more expansion of our time. So I like that. And the other change is the lateral hire. I don't have it memorized, but according to the current civil service, if they're lateral, if they don't have to take the test if they have already, if they're coming from civil service. if I'm not mistaken, under
Your
the
current
lateral hire.
local rule says if you're employed as a civil service employee and or if you have left within a certain period of time, you don't have to take the test.
But this one states that you do not take any, if you're lateral
You're allowed.
and 3 or more years, there's no requirement that just
Correct.
is over.
You have two different methodologies currently in your local rule.
Right.
Anyone who's a certified officer that is not working for a civil service agency has to take the test. Anybody who is a member of the civil service city
Does not have,
that makes the application, they don't have to take the test.
and this does away with that.
So this will
That's what I
make
like.
it so that everyone who meets your minimum standard that you set for lateral entry, which is in here for
Right.
years of what you asked for, then they wouldn't have to take the test.
Right.
You could immediately start working on qualifying them and determine if they're hireable.
That has merit.
Quality
That's
of
why
person that you
I
want.
agree with that.
And you can
Okay.
do that independent of the entry level test. There are provisions written in here, so if he's doing backgrounds on 3 lateral entries at the same time you just gave a test and they're being background. And these people prove out to be quality folks that he wants to hire that meet minimum standards, he can hire them even though that other list is active and
Right.
working without having to hire number one.
Right.
So that's the benefit
Right.
of
John,
not having to test.
on page 2, top of page 2, could you read the first sentence? That it refers to section 15 was lateral hire, but it talks about a test there. So maybe I'm reading it wrong. The first the 3 lines, officers as described. Section 15 is lateral hire.
Do what now?
Section 15 talks about lateral hire.
Correct.
So could you interpret that for me? Because they don't take a test, but it says here that they do.
Uh,
See that, Colin?
Well, sir, you have to start by reading the sentence on the prior page, the last sentence. It says, all applicants that are not hired under the modified hiring process for reappointment
Uh-huh.
to the city of Lamar Police Office as described in section 14, and then the lateral entry, which is 15. Everyone else has to take the test, but not those. So you have to read that full sentence because it says all candidates that are not hired under 14 and 15, which is your prior civil service employees and lateral entry employees.
Shall be, okay, I got you. I hear you.
So I may have written it backwards, but
Yeah.
it means that
So they don't have.
anyone who's not a lateral
Yeah, I got you.
hire and anyone who is not a former civil service employee of this
Has to
city
take the test.
has to take an entry
Okay,
level.
I got you. Okay, thank you. I'm okay with this and it looks good and meets everything we need, Patty, to expedite hiring process. I know you're doing the test about every 6 or 7 weeks, which is light years ahead of where we were a year ago. And we need to keep doing that. But this, if we're done with our backgrounds, if Human's done all his, which he's fast, and the Sarge, we can get the next one started to be processed. They're not hired, but they're being worked on. So we don't have any dead time, you know? Yeah. So that's the plus.
Patty, did you have any other questions?
Don't get this trumps everything. So, you know, it trumps civil service and our 143. So we're just making a hiring rule in the CBA that clarifies everything. We got to go by this if it's approved. It's blessed.
I'm sorry, Patty, I didn't catch the last part.
I sent it to, on the website, on the board, I wrote it on social communication. Facebook, all those sites.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people don't look on the city's website, they look at the number one is the following about putting in. So that, I think, isn't Andy working on that? Helping to do that, chief. Isn't Andy working on the CLR stuff for the fire?
He's working on everything you said, plus he's working on with JB on a new recruiting video, a recruiting video, which we need to get that done. But he is,
And they're going to be found.
they're gonna be what? Yes. He's got his little team together that did that, and they're gonna do it again. So,
Well, we firmly believe that this will give you and the chief some tools in your chest to be more expeditious, to be more cost effective, to be appealing to a
Mhm.
wider branch of applicants. And we view that as being a big plus for the department. because
I agree with this totally, Susan.
Excellent.
it may take you a little time for you yourself to work through this and utilize the attributes that you think is important in the way that you think they'll work best for the city. But we believe that this gives you those opportunities. And so you won't have to worry about someone who's on the eligibility list, hiring an attorney and trying to sue the city for a violation of state civil
Mhm.
service law when we have perfected our own local rule in Lamarck, Texas, legally through the system of collective bargaining, which is allowed. And, that preemption is in, if you, and I'm sure Gus will tell you, but under Texas Local Government Code 174.005, it authorizes us to enter into an agreement and do this and make it the law in Lamar, Texas.
I would say next, does this document represent a consensus from how all of you feel? Does, Chief, do you agree with the consensus?
On this hiring thing? I fully agree with it, and I believe it's light years ahead of where we've been. We need to have it.
Excellent.
Sure.
Patty, I know you probably need more time to review, but for the most part, you agree with the consensus. We just got to get the actual logistics, I guess, if you will, the wording of it. Barring Gus's review. Gus, you have to say something?
Yeah, I have a question. Obviously, I understand the parts of this that that the ultimate goal of what we're trying to do here, and that's fine. I guess, there are some, and I'm sure this, I understand where the document came from. So, but like there are things in here that this document addresses that are already addressed in the current version of the Lamarck CBA. For example, the seniority, which is section 13 of this document. The Lamarck CBA addresses seniority in Article 15, I believe. So I guess my main question is, when in instances of that, are y'all asking us to modify the current CBA to reflect that? Or are you was that just put in here because of the lateral hire stuff? Does that make sense?
We felt like that there's an order by which this should be addressed, and this would be one whole package that deals with that. There are other places in the current CBA that addresses some of the subject matter. But it would be our expectation that you would go through and ensure that if it needed to be, you're gonna have your own opinion about where it needs to be in the agreement.
Right.
I believe that if it's all with regards to hiring, then it's spelled out where anybody reads it in a few pages. So
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
right for you to remove it from other parts of the contract, because it basically says the same thing. It's just in two different places.
Okay, so what you're asking is, or I guess what the ask is that if these sections are dealt with in other sections of the CBA, what you're saying is you want the section that is in this document to control, to be the section, correct?
Well, which one controls, as long as it's the same, it's just redundancy. So I would expect that you would clean up. I didn't feel comfortable going into your document and taking out things, even though we wrote
Oh,
another
feel
section
free, red line away.
like that. For consistency purposes, I would expect that you would probably want it to be covered in one place and not in two places.
I don't necessarily disagree. I just, for the senior, the reason I bring it up is we have a section that deals with seniority that is different than what is in this document. And my question is, are y'all asking for what's in this document? And I keep saying this document. It's the one you sent
proposal
this
that
morning.
we're making encompasses what we think is the correct approach with regard to seniority.
Yeah, that's my question.
So these other portions of the contract were done at times with a different philosophical viewpoint. And
Right.
we're definitely open for discussion, but I think if you just have it in one place and we scrap it in other places, then for consistency, it'll all make sense. Now, if you
I don't
disagree
disagree with that. I don't disagree with that approach. I just want to make sure that what you're asking me for is what you presented.
Right. And then the
Okay.
other aspect of this is, and we had this conversation with the chief, we wanted to be consistent. So if the city believes that we're not hard and fast. If you thought that the probationary period would better suit for it to start on the date of hire versus the date of commission versus the date of training. I mean, that's all just philosophical viewpoint. I try to track what the state statute says, which is basically from the date of employment. But we can.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of opinions on that. My stronger opinions are that the probationary period, it's our version, I feel, gives us more management rights, whereas what we have here is not, I feel, restricts them somewhat. And not that, and that's a discussion for myself and management, but I want to know, what I'm trying to figure out is, are you asking, the things that are in here, are you asking us for, or is the main purpose of this document the multiple list and then the modified hiring?
I would say this is what we're asking for because
Okay.
because we see this in other municipalities and it's working well. But if you want to have a dialogue about that, we're not opposed. If the chief would like a slight modification, it's not going to make this a bad thing for us. We're gonna work with the city. And I said, but I'm just saying, we're taking this as a whole picture and trying to put it into one hiring section. Then that way it covers everything. And so whether it be the employment date or the commission date, and we've had this discussion with the chief. I mean, I think management needs to weigh in and decide what they think is in the best interest of the city, and we would have a dialogue. We think we're putting this forward as what we think will be the best thing for the city. And we've given inside here, if someone is injured, you can park their probation for a period of time until they come back. If pregnancy, we've tried to take into consideration military leave, all the different eventualities, because we want to have a real 1 year probation. And if you got injured and had to be out for a period of time, we don't necessarily believe that should take off your probation. It should start again when you come back. So we've written that as well. So that's not necessarily standard everywhere, but so we want to make sure that the chief has an opportunity to view someone's performance and make a valid decision about whether or not they need to stay on this police department in a probationary environment. So, but we're certainly want to work with you any way we can to get the best outcome for the city.
Okay. Well then, yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look at this. So,
And we also patterned some tie breaking, that.
Yeah.
It's just how,
He has a question.
Yeah, I don't.
But just whatever that means. It's just.
I mean, and I guess my question is, I mean, I'll have to take a look at it, but I'm not sure that. And I'll have to defer to Caesar on this, on where we are and will we consider it, if that makes sense.
Gus, let me ask something. It's
Sure.
unrelated to the theme of this. When we do the new CBA, can we number the pages? It's so much easier. It's to find, when I call Patty, I say, go to page 46. It's really,
Yes, we
oh,
can,
it does. Okay.
we can number that.
Yeah, they need to be numbered.
I'm gonna show the chief your draft so he understands how you've done it. Because I think it answers this question.
I hadn't seen that yet.
This is just a draft.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. Love it. Make it a lot easier to read.
Yeah, for reference.
It's never been numbered till now.
That, I was talking to John this morning and I was all excited last year when we were done, and then G-Rod and I spent what I thought was a longer time than we needed trying to get the formatting and pages right. So I was trying to cut that issue off. So
Is this the one you had to go back and retype the entire? Just for the formatting purposes?
yeah, somebody in my office did, but yeah. Formatting and typos. Well, I wanted all one font, for example.
Yeah,
That's the first thing that stood out to me, was that in the page numbers was the first thing, but yeah, I guess that's the old teacher.
well, and I would hope there's a consensus from your legal counsel, but even after we have a TA agreement, it's not final until it's signed and ratified. So sometimes we go back through there and we find we want to make it consistent. So if it says city, we want to say city every time, or if it says association, we want to say association every time. And a lot of times when you write things and draft it, you end up with the city of Lamar, the city, police association, the union, and they all mean the same thing. But for consistency and form, it's always nicer if every time you say it, it means the same thing. And so we tend to go back through and try to find misspelled words,
So I
that,
think Gus takes a lot of pride on in that aspect of it, is making sure that it's consistent throughout. We've had several discussions on that, and he's definitely, like Edith's office has taken that charge well. So sounds to me like we need to verify figures, make sure Susie blesses the figures, at least for year one. That's all we can do. Obviously, we agree on that, right? We understand that.
Mhm.
We'll have Chief, Gus, and Patty have final discussion on the language. Then the legal, so first, the content of the language, making sure that we're on the same page, then the legal sufficiency of the language. And then assuming that all sides agree, incorporate the public safety, mental health subcommittee language in there as well. Complete all that, share a final draft to make sure everybody has a chance to read it before we meet again, right? And then schedule a meeting next week to hopefully finalize this in principle. Then you take it to your constituency. Then it goes on the October 10th agenda, but we need to get that done ideally by Monday, the 3rd of October. And if so, we keep with our timeline agreement we got going on now. How does that fall in line with our 15-day extension? I believe our 15-day extension ends
The 30th.
September. So that means we need another extension, correct?
Yes, we'll need another extension regardless because the council doesn't meet till the 10th.
Okay, so can we get another extension rather quickly so we can get that done? And if you get it to us now, we'll sign it before we leave today. So just so we can do it. I think we're not stalling this. It's not being stalled and so forth. And also just for public consumption, anybody who may watch this on YouTube or anything else, we want to make sure that everybody clearly understands that the potential changes being discussed in the hiring process is in no way getting us an inferior officer in any way, shape, or form. It is we're reframing how we look at the officer instead of maybe older ways and more stringent ways as to how it was looked at before. We're reframing and looking at each candidate in different manners, depending on where they come from. I think we can all agree on that, but I want to make sure that that's publicly stated so there's no question in that. The last thing I want is someone to say that we've lowered our standards. We're not. We're just looking at every candidate in a different manner. And I think we can all agree on that.
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
regarding the wellness committee, I'm working through what you sent over. I just wanted to point one thing out. The Marque charter agreement requires that boards and commissions of the city be established by ordinance. So we can't contractually agree that that be done. Now, that being said, there is what we can do and what the city does.
Mhm.
I believe Chief Aragon has one. It's that department heads or can have advisory committees that give them advice. That's what we've done in the past. So I just firmed up the language in what you sent over that this is an advisory committee of the city manager. So you'll see that. I understand that it's somewhat of a technical deal, but that's why I did it. So I don't want y'all to, and I obviously the compensable parts I left in. I just want y'all to be clear. I just, when you see that, I wanted you to know why I did that. So.
Yes, sir. I know the city depends on your legalese to make sure that they stay within the context of their charter and their ordinances, so I'll defer to the fact that you're the guy that knows the game plan. But-
So, question, if it's possible, then Gus, is there any chance you could email, Mr. May, is that printer working?
Yes.
It is. Could you please share with us the extension documents? We can get that signed here today before we leave.
I'm saving it right now.
Excellent.
John or Caesar or Patty, do y'all know which extension this is? I have a blank in there right now, but I can fill that in.
What is this, number 4? This is extension number 4?
It'd be number 3.
Yeah, because of, yes, meeting 0. Yeah, so this would be extension 3, Gus. Or Miss Patty, if you want, if the printer up here is working, send it to Maze and you can print it right here.
Joshua Mays, you print it right there.
So it's going to extend to October 15th, 2022.
That gives us enough time to get through what hopefully will be this going before the NICE on the 10th.
Yeah. While would it be possible for us to take a quick break or caucus while he's, typing that up, and then we can go out? And I think the team members want to formulate and see if they have any questions that need to be answered before we all
Certainly.
leave.
I'll take the same moment and let Fire know because their TBA is immediately after yours.
Okay.
I'll let them know that we're wrapping up, if you will, and hopefully we'll start theirs immediately when you guys are done.
Maybe it'll give y'all an opportunity to also talk about maybe some of the concerns that he had in reference to the hiring.
I don't think Gus had the concerns. He just wanted to know if your ask was to
Right.
supersede anything. I think Gus is going to coincide on the content being more Chief and Patty, which I think they agree on. It's just a matter of just making sure that the verbiage fits what they have, that they feel comfortable with it. As their offices would be the ones to have to live with this, for at least for the next 3 years. So as far as that consensus is heard, but absolutely, if any questions or concerns have to go on from there, we could take care of them that way.
One with regards to that, I mean, we poured over this, poured over, even
What happened?
late at
Did we lose
9
them?
o'clock today.
May, did we lose everybody on? Oh, there they
I
go.
can hear y'all.
Okay. Thought we lost
As
you.
of 9 o'clock today, we held a meeting with some others, and it was pointed out to us that, and it was in the language of some of the other agreements I did, that we put a clause in, like in Denton, So that like the lateral part would pick up anybody that was here over a period of time. So that it'll all be uniform across the department. If there, and I don't know if there's anybody that is, but I would suggest now that I found out, took it out, like on the rehires or whatever, if we put a sentence in there that says that this would, be effective back, say, 24 months for anyone that returned to the department, so that they're all on one set of rules. I don't think there's anybody that's outside of that, but someone's told me about one or two people that have returned to the employee of the city. And then so there's no, so if someone shows up tomorrow and gets to come back, but they get to come out at a higher rate of pay. I think it's a negligible amount of money, but I think it has to do with the fundamental fairness. So would you be opposed to me adding a sentence in here, and I'll provide it, where it just basically says on, and it would deal with section 14, which is the modified hiring process for reappointed city of Lamarck employees. So this would be anybody that has been here before that comes back in the future. Since there is someone or a couple of people that have done that already, we'd want it to be the same. So I would just put it, say that you can't do it forever, but we could say like this once approved, that this would apply to anyone who returned prior to the approval, like 24 months with 12 months, 48. 48 is what we put in two different agreements that I've done, but that's 4 years. So I'm thinking that's probably no one's in that category, but 24 months it would, and in that way it would pick up anybody that did come back, and they would all be at the same rule of pay.
Thoughts on that, Chief?
I'm okay with it.
No objections from anybody else?
Make it simple.
So then you would like to provide that language as,
You bet.
as an amendment to this? Gus, did you capture that, or do you prefer that John sends you something directly?
Yeah, if John can just email me.
Then how much time would you guys want? Did you get the document, Mr. Mays? Okay, perfect, great. So we'll get that signed off. How much time would you guys like?
Let's take a 15-minute caucus. That way it'll give you all a chance. Gus had the one section that he wanted to talk about as far as feeling it constricted some of your managerial rights. And, maybe we'll get a chance to be able to come back to the table and maybe readdress that and find out what his concerns are and what we might be able to do to help fix that before we get away from the table today.
Whatever you guys would like to do. I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah. All right.
Mr. Kerr, I believe the document is here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You want to look at that, make sure that it's okay. So we're gonna go into a caucus. Mr. Kerr. Time noted, it is 12:15. We will reconvene at 12:30. Mr. Mays, if you could please, I guess, take us off of live or pause. I don't know how that works. Pause us, if you will, or mute us, or whatever, what have you, so we can have our private
Caucus.
discussions, I guess, if you will.
Now they are.
That's the hello, hello. All right, welcome back from the brief break. Following the break, I know we had a chance to catch up on a few things. I think we're on the same page, Chief, moving forward. Did you guys have anything else following your discussion?
We're good with where we stand now. You know, was there any changes that needed to be made to anything that y'all had discussed at all?
I believe Gus, whatever changes he may have.
Yeah, I'm working on them and I'll send them back.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think they're very minor. And obviously they'll be up for discussion should that need to take place. And at this point, if there were to be any final changes the next time we meet, we'll do it as a live document that we could all get a consensus if there are anything after the internal review and obviously sharing those changes. So we can move this process along since. So as a brief recap, so we are all on the same page. On the terms of compensation, Ms. Susie was going to take a chance to see if she can get that done before the end of the week, if possible. If time allows, or at least before our next meeting, obviously, so we can include that into the body of the final document. Gus was gonna make sure that all the language pertaining to the ad hoc mental health public safety committee was included. And then the last thing was the section on the hiring, on how we're going to reframe how we verbalize or articulate in our contract how that hiring process would take place. Once all that is taken care of, then we could come back with a final document for review. The intent is for that to happen between now and earlier part of next week. We would reconvene this meeting, obviously with the posting taking place at least 72 hours before. So if we could decide on a date that everybody agrees on, date and time, now if we can, so we can announce that time and make sure that it's properly noted. Patty, if you could work with Kiera and make sure it gets properly noted, whatever date and time we decide. We can move from there as to what needs to take place. What day do we, first of all, I guess we could start with, in this sense, Gus and Susie is, we don't want to rush through this process. We're hoping to have a final done by the 4th. You would need enough time to meet with your constituents after we meet,
That's
but before
correct.
the deadline. What day does everybody have in mind? I guess, how much time would Susie and Gus, how much time would you guys need to do what you need to do?
I'm shooting to have this to John by Monday.
I'm okay with Monday.
Okay, so question, I guess I'll ask this next question.
I'm barred in another city on Thursday. It'll be like 27th.
So the 27th works for you for
That's-
us to have our meeting?
That would be
Question
next
is-
Tuesday.
Does that give you enough time to have your meeting afterwards
Yes,
to still get us a response, a final response before, preferably by Friday, the 30th, latest Monday, the 3rd, so we can get it finalized for the October 10th agenda?
yes,
So your meeting will more likely take place, I'm assuming, between the 27th and the 30th.
that would be correct.
Okay, so we now question, Mr. Kerr, I guess in this case, if you get the documents on Monday, is that enough time for you to review them in time for our meeting on Tuesday, the 27th?
I'm sure it would be, but I've got an appointment that day and I've got to see that I can move it before I get to be totally committed, so.
That's fine. And again, we're not, we're a moving target here. So I think we're all understanding the timeline. If the 27th doesn't work to meet,
There's a
right, it would have to, if you go to 27th, that's why I'm asking if we're gonna go to 27th.
28 is a possibility, or is that?
I again, don't necessarily have a problem with it depending on what time. I'd prefer if it's possible to go earlier if we can. But then again, we have Sawgrass HOA in the evening.
What day we talking
I've
about?
got a meeting daytime midday, but I mean, I can move things around as needed. I prefer the 27th if it allowed, but then again, if we can, it can't. I could do whatever. we need to
Yeah,
do.
9 AM on 28th works for me if we
It's
can
October now.
make that. work.
No, this is September 28th.
Okay,
This is
28th.
next Wednesday.
How does 9 AM on the 28th sound to?
I will
Yeah.
make it work.
I'm okay with that.
That works with you? That works with all of you? Miss Patty, that works with you?
September 28th.
Wednesday, 28th, 9 AM. Excellent. Okay, and then the last set of business we had was signing the extension that takes us through the 15th of October, which hopefully,
Right.
will be a mute point because we hope to pass this on the 10th. Does that give everybody enough time? Is everybody comfortable with this time frame?
So we got two meetings, the 28th and the 15th. That's the two next ones, or I'm missing something.
No, we're meeting on the 28th.
And hopefully
do-
that will be.
Hopefully that will be the final.
That'll be our
9
final.
AM. Because that gives enough time for Mr. Kerr to review what he would be sent from Susie and Gus.
Okay,
That allows him from whenever he gets it on Monday. Well, I'm assuming Susie would send it to Gus to include in the final document to
Mhm.
send to you.
Right.
So then you would have from whenever you get it on Monday, the 26th, until 9 AM on the 28th, to review, make any final adjustments, go back and forth. Agree in a consensus, we meet to formalize everything and hopefully have a blue pen party on the morning of the 28th. We're done with that. Then you take it and, as a preliminary consensus, if you will, to your constituents. Assuming between the 28th and the 30th, you get us a signed copy back. It goes on our agenda by no later than Monday, the 3rd, so that it can be on Monday, the 10th, formal council agenda.
That is the plan.
That's the plan. At least we all agree. Now, the question is, does that timeline work for everybody here? Susie, does that work for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
that should work for me.
All right, Gus, does that work for you?
That's fine.
Great. Chief, you good with that?
yep.
So the 28th is the only time that we need to schedule time to meet together. A lot of it has to happen before.
Who's gonna publish the Outlook invitation, anybody?
The invitation
Well,
for the
for
28th?
this meeting, we just write it down now.
Yeah, we're gonna put it on our calendars now internally for the 28th.
Mhm.
Patty's gonna get with Kiera to make sure it gets
Right.
announced
That's
in
what I'm
time. Yeah,
The only thing I will ask is, Gus and Susie, if y'all can, I know that it's a lot of work for y'all. But if y'all can try and get that information over to John the earliest possible on Monday, that would greatly help him out as well.
well, I'll tell you this, if it's not enough time, please, by all means. But knowing Susie, she's probably working on that stuff right now. She's probably gonna try to get it to Gus before then. And then Gus is probably, with his magic tech fingers, is probably already working on this as we speak, so. Okay. I'm adding it to my agenda right now. The document's been signed. Ms. Patty, I know you were scanning it to everybody, I believe. All right. Are there any other questions, discussion, good of the order? Anything we'd like to share?
Don't believe we have anything.
Yeah. No.
Ready to see you on the 28th.
Well, hopefully, if anything is needed between now and then, please let me know. If anything else comes up, please, let's share it, and then let's move forward. Okay,
That sounds good.
great. Anything else? Chief, you good?
Oh, good.
Ms. Patty? Everybody on that side of the table, we're good?
Yeah,
We're good.
and
All right,
by the same token, I think Gus knows that if he and I can still send back forth, and if Susie is the last one to have a couple pages, we can insert that in. So I think we
Absolutely.
could be way ahead of the
absolutely.
game. It's just, I want him to be comfortable that he's doing the right job by you guys, because, that's what you're paying for.
I'm very comfortable with that. Well, if that's the case, I will move to adjourn the meeting, and we can move things forward. Very good.
Good. All right.
Mr. Mays, if you could please conclude the meeting. Thank you all. We'll see you guys 28th, 9 AM.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.